Are we filming? Yes, we are. So welcome to another video. This is going to be, I'm going to be doing a little bit of philosophizing, as I'm inclined to do. And it all started with the purchase of 4 of these. Now, they are, I'll show you. Let's open the package. I bought these on Amazon for, I believe, £9 for 4 of them. So they're very cheap. For those of you who can translate, I'll just hold up both sides, that way and that way. It says A6, but it's the standard conventional personal size, Filofax personal size. It says loose leaf note A6. Okay, so we are where we are, but you and I know that this is a Filofax sized personal ringed binder. I won't go through all of them because I got 4 of them, but I'm just going to check for the rings. They seem to work well. They're in perfect alignment. You know, these are so cheap. And yet the quality control of ring alignment seems to be perfect. In fact, seeing as ring alignment is actually something that I go a bundle on, I will just open the others to have it just for the purposes of science. So I'm looking at these on the second one. They are perfect alignment. Let's have a look at the final one. There's a method in the madness, I'm sure. So let's have a look if we can spot any that haven't passed quality control. And again, perfect, absolutely perfect. So, you know, that's food for thought. Even though these are just well, they're less than £2. They're just over £2 each, aren't they? £2 and 15 pence each, and I bought them from Amazon. To be honest, I can't think of any store local to me where I could buy such a product. So, you know, I do like to support my local businesses if I can, but in this case, I can't. So these are the subjects of my philosophizing. And I'll start with showing you this. So I'm using, this is the one I've already started using. And I've got a whole bunch of unused various inserts in here. This one is a Filofax investment ledger. Fabulous. I love these inserts, by the way, but this isn't about the actual inserts today. It is about the ubiquity of this type of cheap plastic binder, and you can get them online on eBay or Etsy, or in my case Amazon. Maybe in your neck of the woods you might even find them in your local dollar store. Who knows? But this is the thing. There are potentially 4 advantages with the purchase of these. Well, mainly 4, but we'll start with cost. If you are thinking about a repositionable notebook system, which is what I call a Filofax. It's difficult, isn't it? Because if you have a Dyson, you still say you're going to do a bit of hoovering. You know, it is the Filofax brand has become synonymous with. It's almost become, it's always become the word, isn't it? You know. But there is a big advantage with cost. I mean, this has all the essentials or to start to dip your toe in the water especially if you're in A5 size or A4 or pocket or mini size, and you're thinking, well, it's December, I wonder whether I should experiment with personal size for the coming year. But I don't want to necessarily buy an expensive personal size binder in case I'm not happy with the size. And this is a very, very common issue. I mean, I have used every size from A4 all the way down to mini, and I'm still undecided. At the moment, I'm using. I think I'm using every size for different purposes. A4 for business. I have a mini size I'm using extensively. I have one in my pocket right now. That's got my diary in it. And I use personal size extensively as well. So I'm using lots of different sizes. But if I wasn't using personal size, say I was using pocket size, and I just needed a little bit of extra real estate in terms of paper, then I might consider buying something like this very, very cheaply. So this is £2.25. £2.25, not £2.15, £2.25, just to see whether I could live with personal size. And if I didn't, then I could always donate it to my local charity shop or Goodwill store, so it gets used by someone else, and then that person might get into using a Filofax, and so there we go. Or I might cut these off and make mini size or pocket size dashboards, because this is actually that sort of material which would work very, very well to make either a dashboard, or if you had slots in the punched holes, then it could arguably be a very, very effective page lifter for your mini or pocket size Filofax, or even personal size. So if you then decided that you would go invest your time and energy in personal size, then you could easily make these into dashboards or page lifters for your personal size binder system. But there are other advantages with using this from an archive perspective. It's very, very nice to use a relatively expensive, in this case, Filofax Portland. Lovely, lovely thing. One of my favourites, by the way, for archiving purposes. But not everybody has the budgets to have dozens and dozens of expensive Filofaxes. If you are into archiving your used inserts, say your diary for previous years, but this could fit the bill. This could fit the bill purely in terms of cost. I mean, even though it's got perfect flatability, so this is I mean, I'm pushing the boundaries of philosophy here, but it really does my head in that you could spend £100 on a Filofax and you are committing yourself to the agony of training the leather, training it to become like this, perfect flatability. But what you could do is just buy one of these. This effectively has the same function and purpose as, say, a Filofax Heritage model, personal size, which, as we know, costs the thick end of £100 here in the UK. But how many of these could I buy if I spent my money on these instead of a Filofax Heritage? And it would arguably perform the same function. Okay, it's not. It doesn't have a luxurious feel, and I do understand that the feel of a binder gives imbues your day with a certain charm and satisfaction. I totally get that. I totally get that. I am very, very into having a really, really nice. The feel good factor cannot be denied when it comes to binders like this, personal organisers. But this system, this £2.25 product, would work perfectly. I'm not sure what the rings are. Let me measure the size on this one. I mean, obviously there's many of these out there, but I would say it is 15 millimeter rings. Okay, so it's the sweet spot for many people. So the first advantage for your consideration is cost. £2.25. Although in this particular case, I bought 4 for £9. So maybe they were cheaper because I bought them as a pack of 4. But that is the first advantage. Secondly, and this is a real thing. This is a thing that not everybody thinks about, perhaps, but I urge you to think about it. And that is this. Say you are using leather filofaxes for archiving purposes. When I'm talking about archiving, I'm thinking you have them on a bookshelf, and you've got a whole line of them, perhaps, if this is your thing, and they're made of leather. Typically, they're made of leather, aren't they? You may be fastidious in your approach to mould prevention, MOLD. Mould as in the spores which can grow on leather and then they can multiply and breed, as it were. So you may be absolutely fastidious in ensuring a completely dry environment. Although a completely dry environment doesn't actually occur in the real world, but you have to consider this, in my opinion. Future descendants, if you want to be remembered, then you don't want to store all your inserts in a plastic bag, because it might get thrown out with the trash, Ideally, they need to be organised and in binders, perhaps, so that people can sift through them and decide whether they're going to keep your inserts or throw them away. And you have to consider that that throwing away is a possibility. It's inevitable, isn't it? They will become very, very interesting if they're kept for 500 years. But are they going to get to that stage where they go from having no real intrinsic value to extremely valuable data paper from a half a millennium ago? Very interesting. But you just don't know. You just don't know. You may know your immediate descendants, but you don't know their immediate descendants, or the descendants of your descendants of your descendants. Because they haven't been born yet, so they don't know. They may grow up to have a real attitude, which is detrimental to the notion that your archived inserts are going to survive that long. And when I mean inserts, I mean all inserts are interesting, in my opinion. But what if you're using these to store a journal stretching over many, many years? Anyway, I digress. So you've got these leather books on your shelf, or in an iron trunk, or a cardboard box, or in the cellar, or the loft. You don't know how they're going to survive. because of the potential for leather to deteriorate with mold. But if you have them archived in something like this, plastic, it is inert. This doesn't retract any mold. There's these will probably, the plasticizer might evaporate over time, and they might become very, very brittle, but they're going to be used. They're going to survive. They're going to be able to sit there on your shelf, especially if they're not being taken out too often. They're going to be able to survive on your shelf they're going to be more robust than having an expensive leather binder to store things. And so that is going to potentially make the difference between survivability and chuckability. Theft. Okay, so just imagine you have a break-in, a burglary, and you've got a line of these cheap-looking binders. They're less likely to be stolen than a whole line of leather filofaxes. Criminals are fairly intelligent, I would imagine. So if it's a toss-up between putting these in their swag bag or putting these in their swag bag, they're more likely to take these, and then they will throw away your inserts or your journal and then sell these, or might even list them on eBay or Etsy or Vinted or whatever the online selling platform is when you have that burglary. So there is an advantage in having your notes in something that looks fairly nondescript rather than something that looks fairly expensive. So that is a consideration. Okay, and finally, I've got my glasses on, but I had my notes too far away. Finally, the value to descendants. Now, I've mentioned this before, but if you have an expensive looking leather binder on your shelf after you've passed, there is a much higher risk of this being sold because it has some value. They'll look on their smartphone, they'll look inside, they'll see it says Filofax Portland, and they may, if they're mercenary enough, sell this. So you have to think about that. I think the survivability of your paperwork after you've passed could be affected if your paperwork is stored in something that has potentially enormous value. As we know, filofaxes can go for a lot of money. And it's easy to ascertain the value because Filofax, or at least Filofax, but other binders tend to put the name and etc. So it's easy for people that are not interested in Filofaxes to discover that they have a certain value. So there may well be, in my opinion, there may be an advantage with keeping your archive material in a binder like this. And as I say, they're just so cheap. They are just so cheap, aren't they? £2.25 for what is a binder with, well, this one's only just come out of the packet, so it hasn't got perfect flatability, but within seconds it has got perfect flatability. it might be worth your consideration. And I'll just digress slightly and say, when I didn't really check this until I opened them just a moment ago. But the question is, these are obviously very, very cheap rings. How come? And this is like a leading question, but answers on a postcard, please. How come a Chinese manufacturer can produce these so cheaply that through the distribution chain, all the way from the manufacturers to here in the UK, with all these middlemen taking their cut, how come these can, the cost, the £2.25 cost, includes what I would suggest is there must be some element of quality control to ensure that cheap rings with poor alignment get discarded, to ensure that the end user, i.e. me, can buy 4 of them and the rings are perfect on every single one. Now, no names, no pack drill here, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So I'm leaving it with you to mull over that salient point. But until my next video, thanks very much for watching, and goodbye.